Good morning, everyone. For a little bit longer on the West Coast. My name is Dr. Nicola Prendergast-Lucas, and I am the Bachelor of Arts in Psychology Program Chair and an Assistant Professor at the University of Arizona Global Campus. With my co-host, Susan Gould, who's an Assistant Professor and the Department Head of Financial Operations Professions, we're pleased to welcome you to this presentation titled Self-Care First, The Foundations of Embodying Culture of Care Behaviors with Laurel Hodory. Laurel is a certified coach and published author, has been an academic advisor at UAGC since 2020. Prior to joining UAGC, she owned a yoga studio for 18 years, while she taught hundreds of students wellness and yoga classes to help improve their quality of life. For her master's thesis, she studied personal agency and responsible environmental behaviors. She has spent her career helping others break through perceived limitations to become the next best version of themselves. Please welcome Laurel Hodory.
Thank you so much for the introduction and welcome everyone. Thank you for attending this session. Today, my goal is to shift your perspective about self-care. If I'm successful, you'll walk away understanding the following. Self-care is not a luxury, but an essential component in how we show up for ourselves, others, and our community. Two, by practicing self-care, we can embody the cares pillars more readily, professionally and personally. And finally, you'll be ready to get started on your own self-care practice. Nicola did a great introduction to me, and I did want to add that one of the things that I did before I came to UAGC was I owned a yoga studio for 18 years, and I taught locally and internationally. I taught people how to feel better in their bodies using self-care practices. And so I was really excited when the culture of care was introduced at UAGC. And I was able to really put two and two together. There was a lot of overlap between my prior career and this paradigm. When I taught yoga to people and self-care practices, what was the result? When individuals, like all of us here, are grounded in ourselves and our own self-care, we're more capable of growing into the next best version of ourselves. And this means we can show up in the world more capable to do the things we wish to do while also helping others do the same. So today I want to go over an experiential practice, which is where we'll start. I would like to define self-care, what it is and what it isn't. We'll touch on Maslow's hierarchy and how that relates to the culture of cares model. I will also put forth some research on personal agency and emotional literacy. And at the end, we'll go over some tips for setting up your personal care practice. We'll have a little Q&A and we can talk about resources. So let's begin with an experiential practice of presencing. If you would, take a comfortable seat. You can sit tall in your chair, feet on the floor. If sitting in a chair is uncomfortable, I welcome you to consider lying down. Also, for the purposes of our presentation today, you can turn off your video and your audio for this if it isn't already, and it may already be automatically set that way for the audio. But go ahead and close your eyes and turn your attention inward. So when we close our eyes, it's the first step in self-awareness. So much of our days are filled with focusing outwardly. This is a time to focus inwardly, here and now. If seated, place your palms on your thighs. Begin to notice your breath without trying to alter it. Now begin to check in with yourself. How are you feeling right now, right here in this moment? Are you hungry, tired, energized, focused? See if you can come up with just two words that most accurately reflect your current state. Once you have those two words, go ahead and take a snapshot of them, place them somewhere in your mind's eye that you can come back to them. And now take a falling out breath with me by taking a deep inhalation through your nose. Hold your breath at the top. Maybe fill in a little bit more with a little air, like a hot air balloon. And then, like a dam breaking, let the breath rush out with total abandon. Do this 2 more times on your own. Now begin to manipulate your breath, creating a sound like the ocean at the back of your throat as you inhale and exhale. If you're having a hard time making that sound, you can open your mouth on the exhale like you're trying to fog a mirror. The idea is to make your breath louder than your thoughts by constricting the muscles in your throat, much like you would pinch a garden hose to make the force of the water coming out stronger. By pinching your throat, you make the breath come out stronger. Continue breathing like this for a minute or two. If you find that your mind wanders, gently bring it back to your breath. You can't do it wrong. See if you can extend the exhalations. And then with your eyes still closed, take one more audible breath like this. Exhale it out. Inhale your arms up over your head and exhale your hands to your heart. Touch your thumbs to your heart as you exhale through your nose. You can keep your eyes closed and allow your breathing to return to normal. And take a few moments now to ask yourself, how are you feeling right now? Choose 2 words. And then gently open your eyes. And if you're able, go ahead and write down the 2 words that you chose at the start and the 2 words that you chose just now. So what did you notice? This is just one of many different practices you can use to relax yourself, ground, and develop your self-awareness. What did you notice? What were your 2 words at the start, at the end? How are you different before and after the exercise? This type of exercise creates self-awareness, and I apologize, this isn't the best graphic. Um, but self-awareness, oops, sorry about that as well. Let's see, where'd we go here? Self-awareness helps us to identify the strategies that we would use for our self-care. Those self-care practices help us regulate the nervous system through emotional de-escalation. And it helps us get more clarity, which then improves our awareness. The Harvard Business Review article, What Self-Awareness Really Is, by Tasha Eurich, explains 2 different kinds of self-awareness. There's internal awareness and external self-awareness. The internal awareness helps us develop our self-care strategies But it also is partly about identifying our thoughts, our emotions, our reactions, our aspirations, our behaviors in any situation. It's also about knowing how and what we need to do in any given situation. Also, it's about being aware of our physical needs. External awareness, by contrast, is the ability to understand how others see us, seeing our impact on others, and increasing our empathy. So, self care practices help regulate the nervous system. And when we regulate our nervous system, we have the ability to manage our energy better. A regulated nervous system and balanced awareness lead to better personal agency, and it allows us to have improved ability to meet, greet, and respond with better agency and authenticity to any situation that arises. That's from the work of Richard Miller, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So what is self-care? Well, what it's not self-indulgence, buying yourself something or having some food as a reward for doing something. What it is a set of daily practices that fills our tank. And these can be really simple. So, for example, sleep, exercise, movement, food, social network. They're simple, but not easy. Dr. Matthew Walker wrote the book Why We Sleep, and he's identified sleep loss as an epidemic. The acute deprivation of sleep the day after daylight savings results in a massive increase in automobile accidents. And over time, it's associated with chronic diseases like Alzheimer's, dementia, metabolic syndrome, and cardiovascular disease. Here's an interesting one for all of us educators is that deep sleep before and after learning has resulted in increases to memory, consolidation, and learning. That's from Dr. Andrew Huberman at Stanford. And he goes on to say that REM or or dreaming sleep acts as an overnight therapy, improves our problem solving. Um, Trackers like an Oura ring can be helpful to see, like, are we getting that sleep? What about exercise? Well, recent research has shown that 10 minutes of vigorous exercise improves executive function by 14%. And it also improves impulse control. Why or how? It's hypothesized that the exercise raises serotonin levels, and that in turn helps us to manage impulse. It's also been recently found that just 3 minutes of vigorous exercise snacks, if you will, throughout the day, 3 times, improves all cause mortality by 40%. And 5-minute exercise snacks throughout the day, which is now being called snacktivity, which I love that word, can decrease blood sugar, blood pressure, and reduce mental fatigue. And that's also the resources listed up here. Movement's a little bit different than exercise. Movement means what you do in your daily life. It happens all the time. Um, it can be spontaneous dancing, playing with your dog or your child, walking outside, talking with a friend while you're walking, doing housework or yard work, climbing the stairs instead of taking the elevator. There's usually an emotional, mental component to movement too. What about whole foods? Well, there is quite a bit of evidence. I'm only citing one study here that whole foods, actually nutrient-rich foods, can help improve memory retention and the ability to learn. Omega-3 fatty acids have been shown to enhance memory consolidation, while antioxidants help reduce damage that impairs cognitive function. Um, our diets that are high in healthy fats help with neuroplasticity, and diets rich in processed sugars, in contrast, increase cognitive decline. So a strong social network, also referred to as the Rosetta effect, can have a profound effect on our wellness. And the Rosetta effect is a town in an American community of Rosetta, Pennsylvania, where there's a large Italian population, and they studied it for a period of 7 years. And what they found was, despite bad diet and lifestyle habits, people lived really long and had a significantly reduced rate of heart attack, and they concluded that it was likely due to their social network. And finally, nervous system practices. And let me back up and say, with the nervous system reset practices, I want to invite you all to join me tomorrow for Tap Into Your Calm, an interactive nervous system reset, so you can explore some of those. I'll give you some examples later today. I do want to tie in to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can see here on the left, we have to have our physical needs met in order to feel safe and secure. We need that social network of love and belonging in order to build self-esteem and self-actualization. At the right are the cares pillars. I created this myself, that our transparent communication at the bottom is so important. Um, Advocating with equitable practices, respect. I just listened to Dr. Majors on this, a really powerful presentation. Um, and empowering all members of our community, as well as being student-centered. So the question is, how are you showing up? Are you showing up with a full tank or an empty tank? And if it's empty, are you setting yourself up for success? We've all had a bad day. If we compare a good day with a bad day, let's just take this example. You overextended yourself for days on end. You haven't been eating and sleeping properly. You haven't been doing any self-care practices or exercise. You said yes to way too much, and pressure is building up. We talked about some of those things in the respect presentation with Dr. Majors. You know, what are the things that are your triggers that cause you to potentially behave outside of your optimal, authentic self, and using the CARES model? So you have this pressure building up, and then you tell yourself, I'm only going to give myself a break when I'm done with all of this. And at the end of the day, of your bad day, you interact with a colleague or a loved one, and you explode in anger. You react. And guess what? Later, you regret what you've said or done. Full tank, you get 8 hours of sleep. Most nights, you eat whole foods, you get movement, exercise, social interaction, and a little bit of personal time every day. You have that same bad day. Everything's the same. But instead of bottling it up in the moment when you have that interaction, you take a pause. You calmly explain, hey, I've had a really tough day. You ask for a pause, and if you could revisit the matter tomorrow when you're fresh. You don't explode, you don't regret what you said or did, and you set yourself up for a successful interaction tomorrow. Instead of reacting, you respond. There's a tie-in here, and the reason for this analogy, this comparison, is because it ties into the nervous system. So on the left, when we're reactive with an empty tank, everything's fast and furious, impulsive. We have less personal agency, less emotional literacy. We'd probably feel insecure, unsafe, or on the brink of something. We regret our words and actions. Contrast that with a full tank, responsive, slow and intentional, more personal agency and emotional literacy, secure, safe, and thoughtful. And I bring this secure and safe and thoughtful back up just to take you back real quick to this. It's very important here that we have that. It's foundational to our ability to self-actualize the CARES behaviors. So there's something called internal locus of control, which is about believing that your actions matter. So examples of this would be, you believe that hard work results in success at work. You believe my vote matters. My actions have an impact. My personal self-care makes a difference in my health. If you're a student, You might think if I study and apply myself, I will do well in school. And in fact, the research bears that out. There's a plethora of it. I have a few things cited here, but it shows that folks with an internal locus of control implement health and lifestyle changes that improve health outcomes. They're more proactive because they perceive that their actions impact outcomes and are therefore motivated. Rotter was actually the originator of the idea of locus of control. Other research shows that guess what? If you have a stronger internal locus of control, you're going to do better in school and you're going to have better grades and better rates of retention. Really important, especially for the work that we all do. Research demonstrated that students who were coached to adopt an internal locus of control raised their mean grades to a C or better, while control groups remained at unsatisfactory levels. This is powerful stuff. So there's a relationship between our internal locus of control and our emotional literacy. You can see here in this diagram, and again, it's a little bit blurry, I apologize. We talked a little bit about self-awareness earlier. And this emotional literacy also includes this component of internal locus of control or agency. As people become more emotionally literate, they feel more empowered to change their circumstances and take different actions. And so this emotional literacy, though, includes these middle circles that you see: awareness of others, social empathy, also self-regulation. That emotional literacy isn't just about self-awareness of emotions, but how are others perceiving your presence, your impact? Um, Emotional intelligence involves the idea that cognition and emotion are interrelated. That's from the Howard Community College. And emotional literacy is the ability to simultaneously maintain awareness of one's own emotions and the emotions of others and our impact on them. So, how do we build a self-care practice that would help us build our emotional literacy, our internal locus of control, our self awareness, and ultimately our ability to embody the care's behaviors? Well, we talked about these earlier: quality sleep, exercise, movement, whole foods, strong social network, and nervous system reset practices. But I want to take a moment specifically to talk about the nervous system reset practices because they do tie in so closely to emotional literacy and self awareness. So, nervous system reset practices obviously target the nervous system. The nervous system, you may or may not know, is made up of the central nervous system, that's your brain and your spinal cord, the peripheral nervous system, which is your motor ability, moving your hands, arms, legs, etc., and the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system regulates the fight or flight response, which is our protection mechanism, and the rest and digest response, which is our repair. Fight or flight turns on instantaneously. You go out and ride your bike and almost get hit by a car within a millisecond. You are going to have a flood of hormones, a stimulation to your hypothalamus pituitary axis, and your whole nervous system is going to be jacked up. And in fact, it takes up to 24 hours for those hormones to degrade fully. In contrast, the rest and digest response turns on very, very slowly. We live in a digital world where we are on 24/7. So we are subject to chronic stress. And that's why it becomes increasingly important to have these nervous system reset practices at our fingertips. What we did at the beginning today was a nervous system reset practice. And tomorrow, when I teach to the tap into your calm, the interactive nervous system reset, you'll get exposed to some other tools. Being able to toggle readily out of a stress mode into that rest and digest mode helps us build capacity. Some other examples of nervous system reset include breathing exercises, meditation, vagus nerve exercises, and so much more. Getting out in nature, quiet time, listening to wordless music. So, how do you go about setting up your self care practice? Well, first of all, lean into what you're neglecting. Is it the basics with quality sleep, exercise, movement? Is it packing your schedule too tight, rushing? There's a saying in Ayurveda: curry, worry, and hurry are the root of all illness. Curry means your food, worry means exactly what it says, and hurry means you're rushing all the time. Start small. Just 5 minutes a day of meditation, journaling, or sitting quietly can be highly effective. You can try those exercise snacks I mentioned earlier. 5 minutes of movement throughout the day, every hour, have been shown to significantly improve metabolism, for example, and cognition. Identify barriers. What are they? Is it you don't have the time to do it, or you don't have a place to do it? Schedule your time. Wake up 5 minutes earlier if you need to. And that's a great way to start your day. I always tell myself, and sometimes even when I talk to students, go to the hub, look at the box breathing exercise, and before your feet hit the floor every morning, set your alarm 5 minutes early and do the breathing exercises in bed. Why? Here's the why behind it. When we are stressed and under pressure, we lose access to our memory. And that's why we do things like lose our keys when we're rushing. That's because the body rest- what's the word I want to say? Redirects glucose away from executive function and memory in the brain and directs it towards our arms and legs for fight and flight. It's a physiological reality. There's nothing wrong with you, but it happens. And so when you're in that stressful situation, you're not necessarily going to remember to slow your breathing down. However, if you practice really good breathing exercises every morning, you may just find yourself doing that audible breath that we did earlier today. If that's part of what you're doing for your daily practice, you might just go immediately into it when you get into a stressful situation, and that will help you right then and there. Locating a spot in your house with the tools you'll need so you can make it inviting, a journal, a bolster, a candle. These are suggestions that are related to the nervous system reset, but remember, there's all kinds of areas that we mentioned already, like sleep, exercise, movement, good nourishment. The main thing is that you start small, you track your habits. It takes 90 days to form a new habit. You can track them on paper or in an application. And research shows that with tracking, anything improves. All right, so that concludes the presentation portion. I am going to lead the Q&A with a quick question on if you guys would be willing to share your 2 words at the outset and your 2 words at the end.
There's also a few comments in the chat for you.
Thank you. I wasn't able to figure out how to look at that while I was presenting. Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, I agree. If it's more than 15 minutes, so I would say 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes, or even those, I called it snacktivities, but you could come up with 3 minutes, 3 times a day. Pause and do a breathing exercise. Set a alarm on your phone. Just reading through these. I like the smartwatch. That's excellent. And you crazy dance for 10 minutes. Janine, that is awesome. So outset, somebody said anxious and distraction. That was you, Kira. Thank you for sharing that. And at the end, calm and focused. And look how little time that was. I don't know if anybody wants to unmute themselves and share. Did you notice a change in your before? I call it a lightning round where you check in and you pick those 2 words. Did you notice a difference? You're welcome, Felicia. Anybody else? I would love to hear from you. Just unmute yourselves and I don't know, maybe you can't. Maybe can you unmute yourselves? Um, let's see, return to the main event site. I'm just seeing if there's anything else in here. So I would say, I think we're at time. But if you want to learn more practices, I'm happy to guide you through that tomorrow at, I believe I'm doing it at 12:25 to 1:15 Mountain. Take an hour off that for Pacific. Feel free to message me with questions. Thank you so much for joining today.
A big thank you to Laurel Hodory for her time and insights. That concludes our presentation, Self-Care First, the Foundations of Embodying Culture of Care Behaviors. Thank you to all of our attendees for joining us. We hope you found this conversation enlightening. On behalf of the University of Arizona Global Campus, thank you, and please have a great rest of your day. We've posted the next session in the chat for you so that you can find the sessions that interest you.